What's up everybody, my name is Blake and welcome to Everything Except Nothing. Today we're going to be going over how I built this LED backlit sign, so let's check it out. Okay, starting off with a 4 foot by 8 foot by ½ inch thick piece of birch plywood. I'm going to go ahead and mark 4 feet, which is center of the 8 feet, on both ends of the board and use a chalk line to make a straight line down the center and cut this board in half. Now I did use a jigsaw for the entire build for all of the cuts, as I wanted to use as few tools as possible in case anybody who's watching this wanted to use just one tool or don't have all the tools, then they could just buy the jigsaw and build a project very similar to this. Now, I did use a software called Bluebeam on the computer to get all of the dimensions for the logo. Now, what I did was I marked all of the corners of the design and vertical and horizontal, marked those with intersecting dimensions and measurements, marked all of the points out, and then drew them on there, and then I highlighted it as I was complete with them. Even while highlighting them, there was a lot of dimensions on there, and I did get lost and confused a couple times. So I drew a couple of the straight lines as I was going, but I did use a pencil as I did mess this up a couple times, and I wanted to fix it. So definitely use a pencil if you're going to be doing something like this as well. Now, there were 2 lines on this design that were curved. So what I did was I used this glow rod or electrical fish rod here and marked the corners, and then I had a reference point in the center from my drawing that I was able to make the arc and then traced along the glow rod. And I did this for the top of the glasses as well. So everything that we're marking out here is going to be negative space. I'm going to cut all these sections out. So the next step is to drill in the negative space. I drilled at pretty much every corner, so I'd have a place for the saw blade to start. Now it's important to know that I did not drill these right at the corner. They are inside of my drawn lines. So went ahead and cut all these sections out, cut out the vast majority of the wood, and then came back and made the finish cuts with it as I needed to. And then there was some sections where I was afraid that I was going to break the thin areas of the board, so I went ahead and clamped a couple of boards across the top so that when I made the cuts, the vibration didn't crack it, or I didn't make any mistakes like that. So going through, sanding the entire board with 120 grit sandpaper, getting rid of any of the marks and the imperfections, and now I'm going to trace the board on all of the exteriors so I have an indication of where my frame needs to start. Now, for all of these exterior marks, I went out another 3 inches so that you could not see the frame from any section of the negative space. So now I'm going to be using 1x2s for this portion, and this is going to build a basically diamond frame around the negative space, and that is what I'm going to mount the LEDs to. So for this I did use 16.4 feet of LED tape light. I got it on Amazon. Check the links below to find that product. And at this point I am just making the cuts and putting them along the lines that I had made of that 3-inch out border. So the next step is to trace the interior and exterior section of all these 1x2s. So I have a reference point. I'm going to drill pilot holes with a 1/8 inch drill bit and use those pilot holes to run screws through the bottom of the board to attach these 1x2s to the backing. Now I did use wood glue as well as 1-inch wood screws for this task, and you want to space these out evenly. You don't need that many for a project like this, but I went probably a little bit overboard. So once the holes are drilled, wipe off your surface area and then go ahead and start doing the glue up. So I put the glue on the boards, spread them out evenly, and then clamped the boards, and then ran my screws in through the back. Now, because I was using screws, I did not let this set up for very long. I just ran the screws in and then moved on to the next section. This project took me about 4 hours from beginning to finish. And yeah, so now clamping this side, I'll clamp the other side and then start running the screws through. And I did this for all 4 pieces of this interior frame. Now, the same thing will happen for an exterior frame for the front board to affix to. This interior frame is just for the LEDs. So getting into the exterior frame, I just cut all the boards down, very similar to what I did for the interior, and this is a better view of how I did the screws and the glue up. So once your board's cut to length, on this one I just trace out the interior line, as the exterior is the outer part of the wood, and I drilled the holes for the screws, the pilot holes, and then did a glue up on this section as well. Now, it is important to do this, especially on the exterior runs, or the exterior part of the framing, to do these pilot holes, because if you just run these screws in, it will split the backboard and it will ruin your project. So it's important to make those pilot holes. So once again, just doing another glue up, spreading the glue, setting it in place, clamped it, and ran the screws. So like I was saying before, because I used the wood screws, I did not wait for this to set up. I basically ran the screws in, unclamped it, and moved on to the next section. And so when I attach the front board to this project, I'm not going to use screws. So I am going to, at the end of this, just go ahead and use wood glue and clamp it in all of the areas, and that's what's going to close this sucker in. So once this is done, I moved on to starting, I cleaned up all the glue and sanded the exterior as well, and then moved on to drilling holes for the LEDs. Now, I drilled a 1/2-inch hole through the exterior frame and the interior frame for the starter cord, and then I just robbed LED lights off of my ring light because I was impatient. I do have other lights on order for this, but the adhesive was just fine. So the LED tape light just adheres right onto the inside edge all the way around. I did have a damaged section of LED, so I made a repair. If you use new lights, you won't have to do this, but the lights are cuttable. So now, testing it and putting the cover on, everything seems to function just fine. And like I said, I'm going to just go ahead and do a glue up on the front part of the board. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Thank you.